hidden in the chaos is the element, waiting to strike like snakes. But I'm there too. You think I'm hiding in the shadows, but I am the shadows.
If you are justice, please do not lie. What is the price for your blind eye?
We live in a world that has many superhero and comic book movies. Sometimes a little too much. So when The Batman was announced, to be honest, I wasn't that hyped. Also because Robert Pattinson was playing the character, I don't like Twilight, and at the time, I wasn't really the biggest Batman fan. Shout out to Sweezy for making me a Batman fan again. And luckily, I think it's safe to say that the movie didn't disappoint. Not only do I think it's a great comic movie, but it's also just a really good movie in general. Having a relatively new Batman in a much more gritty, sad-looking Gotham City with a Riddler who is just as psychotic as the Joker. It is one of the best comic book movies that I have ever seen. And I think it's better than the most popular Batman movie, The Dark Knight. That's why I am super excited for the officially announced The Batman Part 2, which at the time of recording was just announced to have Clayface as one of the villains, which is cool. And I know this kind of video has already been done by like billions of other Batman fans, but I still want to share what I think would be cool to see in the sequel. So if you enjoy, consider hitting all those buttons. The script says we're super close to 3K, but that already happened. Check out my Fiverr. Now let's get started with... Clayface is cool. He's a giant clay monster guy who can do crazy things like shape-shifting, and he's a really scary looking villain, right? Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get that. Similar to Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy, Matt Reeves' The Batman seems to be a much more realistic universe compared to, I don't know, the DC AMU or EU Batman-focused movies. So that's why I think we might be getting a different version of Clayface, specifically the Golden Age Comics version. Basil Carlo is an actor who basically goes crazy when he finds out they're making a remake of a horror movie he starred in many years ago. So he names himself after the movie's villain, Clayface, and starts to kill the people who are working on the remake. Later, he's stopped by Batman and Robin, if I'm not wrong. I think because Matt Reeves' universe so far is much more realistic, we're just going to see the serial killer Clayface and not the actual clay-faced one. Or maybe Earth 1 Clayface, who's like a complete mystery. He's got no fingerprints or ID and all that stuff, if I'm not wrong. I haven't read any Earth 1 stuff yet, so if I got that info wrong, just correct me. I read a post talking about this on like Twitter, so I don't know if it's true. Whether it's the mayor's son, that kid from the beginning with the face paint, or some random kid in an alley taking the wheels off the Batmobile, please make that happen, please make that happen. I just really want like a Robin reveal, or even a little hint. Just give me something, please. The DCEU hinted that Batman used to have a Robin, but that he died, and then it was never looked at again. Unless it was looked at in the Snyder Cut, I haven't seen that yet. So I think it'd be cool for these standalone films to introduce some kind of deuteragonist or sidekick, preferably Robin. I also think it'd be cool because Pattinson's Batman is still kind of new to being, well, Batman. So I think having Pattinson's character, who's still inexperienced, taking in another young orphan to be a sidekick would make a really cool dynamic. But if it doesn't happen, I wouldn't be bothered. I just really want like a Dick Grayson or a Jason Todd in a modern live-action Batman movie. Or maybe Azrael. Azrael's really cool. One of the Batman's main things is showing us Gotham and how corrupted its government and police are. So I think introducing Harvey Dent as Gotham's new district attorney or something would be interesting because he's basically like the complete opposite of the other politicians and stuff of Gotham. Harvey could be the guy who wants to save the city from its corruption and bring justice like he usually does in the comics and stuff. And when I say I want Harvey Dent, I don't necessarily mean Two-Face. Don't get me wrong, really good villain, but I don't think we necessarily need Two-Face right now. I think it'd be cool if there was some subtle hints that Dent isn't 100% stable, because for the people who don't know, Dent actually has repressed mental illnesses like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. So I think having little moments where we're shown that would be a really nice little Easter egg or hint to future projects. But yeah, I just want to see Harvey Dent for the political stuff, you know, like kind of how he was at the start of The Dark Knight. Okay, so these two, I personally wouldn't want as much as the other things I've mentioned. I just think that Man-Bat and Killer Croc would work well simply because of their designs and how the universe looks so far. These two villains are super creepy and very disturbing, and with a very dark and spooky Gotham, I think it would just look really cool and fit the vibe. Especially if there was like a little bit of horror elements thrown in there for Killer Croc in the sewers. Another reason why is because I saw this really cool fan art on Twitter. It looks awesome. I don't know who the artist is, but I just really like the idea of Batman being in the sewers with Killer Croc, and, you know, kind of like how Spider-Man was in Kraven's Last Hunt for that little rat guy. I forgot his name. Vermin, yeah. This one isn't really an idea that I think would be as good as Harvey Dent or Robin or something like that, but a little reference or scene with these two characters would look really cool in Matt Reeves' universe. In the first movie, Bruce Wayne and Batman act exactly the same, which isn't a problem. We're told that Batman's only been a thing for like 2 years in this movie, so obviously they're both going to act similar. But I'm hoping for the Batman Part 2 to have Bruce Wayne and Batman be more separate personality-wise, like in the comics and the other movies. Batman is supposed to be the dark and brooding hero who beats up criminals, whereas Bruce Wayne is the funny and charismatic billionaire businessman guy. He's the complete opposite. And I've always liked seeing the characters separate and switch between these two personalities, if that's what I'm supposed to call it, and seeing how he treats them both like completely different people, like Ben Affleck or Christian Bale's portrayal of the characters in their movies. Their Batmans and Bruce Waynes are polar opposites, especially Ben Affleck.
I just thought the bathroom was down here. I must have, that last martini was too many. I like those shoes.
And for the people who might think, oh, obviously Ben Affleck's Batman will be better at that. In his universe, he's been Batman for like 20 plus years. And I get that. Pattinson's Batman not doing this is fine because he still doesn't have as much experience on. So that's why I'm excited to hopefully see Pattinson's Batman gain more experience and learn to separate the two more. But that depends on if we're getting the time skip or not in the sequel. But if we don't get a time skip, I know exactly what would be perfect for the Batman Part 2. It's obvious, and many people have already talked about it online. It is...
Yes, it would move me to tears if I still had tears to shed. I wish there were another way for me to say it. I cannot. I can only beg your forgiveness and pray you hear me somehow.
Mr. Freeze is one of comic books' most tragic villains. His backstory and what happens to his wife Nora is heartbreaking and can make you sympathize for the character and his goal, depending on what continuity you're reading or watching. His whole character is just really sad, and with how the first movie ended, having this character not be the sequel's main villain would be so unfortunate because of how perfect the timing could be. What I mean by timing is that during the end of the first movie, Gotham is completely flooded with water thanks to the Riddler, and the movie also takes place during the final days of October, which is pretty much when fall slowly ends and, you know, it starts to snow and winter starts. I think that it'd be cool if, instead of Mr. Freeze's lab equipment just malfunctioning when he tries to save Nora's life, it could be the effects from the Riddler's bombs that could flood and destroy his lab, screwing up his equipment, and then basically just adapting the rest of his origin from there. Whether they do it from the comics or Batman the Animated Series, it doesn't matter. I feel like the events of the first movie could tie in really well and make a great backstory for this universe's version of the character. And when he realizes his body can only survive in super cold temperatures, he starts to work on his tech, he starts planning things, and then once it starts to snow in Gotham, he'll be able to leave the lab unaffected by the cold, and, well, we'll get Mr. Freeze as a villain. If we do get him, I'm praying that Giancarlo Esposito ends up playing the character, not only because he's a great actor, I just think he could really fit the vibe of the character perfectly, and also because he's mentioned before that he would like to play the character.
There's the talk of Magneto. There's the talk of Dr. Freeze.
But yeah, that's what I think would work well in the Batman Part 2. I'm not saying that all of these things have to be or should be in the same movie. I just think it'd be nice to see some of this stuff thrown around here. If you have any questions on other things I'd like to see or that I wouldn't like to see, feel free to drop some questions in the comments. Also, if you want to share your thoughts on what you think would work or not work in the next film. That's it for me, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.